Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Nothing is on the desk today because we're talking about Patreon, I don't know, Patreon. So I've kind of wavered about this whole Patreon idea for the longest time. And we've talked about this, or we've had kind of an asynchronous communication about how to use Patreon if we were to try to use it on this channel and what benefit it could be, the drawbacks and how to manage those things. And I've been kicking these things around in my head for the longest of time. Every now and again I get a comment on somebody wanting to donate Patreon me, and I just say, oh no, I don't have anything like that. And they're like, why? And then I have questions of, well, if I buy China Line hobby batteries, do you get a kickback or anything? And the answer is no. I only get batteries, and that's it. The only other revenue source that I have on YouTube, so, well, let me go back. For those of you that haven't been around a real long time, hold on, let me put something here so you can look at. Catalyst Machine Works, built but needs the camera yet. Maximus FPV 2S 1102 Whooper. Yes, I have a Hornet, and yes, I had to replace the camera just like Albert did. I just today over lunch discovered I had been fussing with this thing for far too long because the camera is faulty, and that's a demerit in my book. What else can I show you just to look at that you may have not seen already? Falcon multi-rotor Tiny Shark. This one is a flips to death, so I need to fix that yet. Oh, here's one more. Flex RC Komori 3-inch. This reminds me of something I've seen before. Anyhow, so some things to look at here while I yammer on. So when I first started doing this YouTube thing, my wife and I kind of got together and we talked about it. I don't do a lot of other things. I don't go play cards with friends. I don't go have drinks. I have a few friends, but my few friends are kind of like me. They're family guys. I'm not terribly old, but I'm old enough to where I'm not interested in going out after dark and doing a lot of things. And I don't go out and spend money on, say, you know, a meal with a friend or something like that. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of not a guy thing, but it's kind of what our wives all do, or at least the wives in my little circle. We decided that we would take a certain amount of money and we would allot that amount of money to me doing this. This is my hobby. It's expendable cash. And my wife and I are very fortunate. We have good jobs and we have good incomes. So we've taken that amount of money and I've put it into the YouTube channel each and every month. And we've been doing that a little over 2 years. We've talked about stopping that, but we've decided against that, mainly because of me. And then there's affiliate stuff, kind of the seedy underbelly to doing this. So if I get a machine from some vendor, whether it's GearBest or Banggood or whoever, and I put a link in it and they have an affiliate program, and then you buy that or something else, I'm not certain that these things always work. And there's some indications that some vendors are cheating possibly on this. But anyways, so if you buy $1 worth of product, I think I get like 2 cents or something like that for every dollar, if anything. So it takes a while to add up, but it's been working quite well. So don't think I'm complaining about this stuff. We've been able to buy a lot of things, bring a lot of things to the channel, and some vendors have really come clamoring while others haven't. But again, people have come to me and they've wanted to give back, so to speak. And I just didn't know how to do that. And maybe 2 weeks ago, I set up the Patreon page. And I'd never done it. And I just kind of walked through it. And I kind of got put off by it. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do this. And I said, okay, just go forward, see what happens, learn something. If I misstep, then correct it and move forward. So I thought tonight I better sit down and we better talk about this because it could get out of hand on me quickly. Maybe I should have done it before I ever linked it. So I have my Patreon page linked at the very bottom of the video description. Well, one of the bottom few lines, whatever. And some of you have already found it. So 3 people are Patreons already. Frank, Emmett, and I don't know if it's Luis or Louis. Thank you guys. I think it's very cool that you went clear to the bottom of the description. You saw that and thought, I'm going to, do this. And at first it troubled me. Frank was the first one to notice, and Frank and I had a little chat on the Patreon page. It has like a forum where you can post messages back and forth. And I shared how I wasn't really prepared for what this might bring. and he thought I was kind of looking at it wrong. And I think he's got a very good point. Frank, I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here by talking about this stuff, but I do think everybody can see this stuff over on the Patreon page. I had put reward free in asterisks by the link for the Patreon page. And that's because we'd had discussions here where we talked about using Patreon as a way of making people who are actually interested in quads or drones on the giveaways. So you'd have like a raffle almost. But that troubled me too, and I could never kind of bring myself around to it, so we didn't do that either. And we had a number of these other discussions. And so I put reward free, meaning if you want to do this, you will not get anything back. There's no payout, there's no secret post, there's no hidden post. You won't get access to videos early. I'm almost trying to talk you out of it, but here it is. And Frank says this: funny that you say this is a reward-free Patreon, but I disagree. While I understand what you mean, as in there is no direct tangible benefits, there are indeed benefits from being one of your patrons. It's the closest that I can come to shaking your hand or giving you a pat on the back, just to say thanks for a job well done. And that Frank must be some sort of writer, because that was kind of eloquent. I've spent a lot of time writing memos and stuff like that, so I do a fair bit of writing, and I appreciate the effort that it takes to put together a well-crafted few statements. So thank you, Frank. And Frank, thank you for opening my eyes. And that's why I'm here tonight. I want to say thank you to everybody who wants to become a Patreon. I won't treat your comments any differently if you're not a Patreon or if you are a Patreon. I share your enthusiasm, and you'll notice that everyone who's a Patreon has donated, or whatever they call it when you go through Patreon to give money, $1. And that's great. It's sometimes hard to put into words what things mean. But thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it deeply. So I wanted to come here tonight, and I wanted to make sure that it was very upfront about what my thoughts on this were. And there's no plans for this. There's no plans at all. I started it and I linked it, and it's not changed. Of course, it's only been, I think, 2 weeks or something like that. So it's there. If you, like Frank, would want to give me a pat on the back or a virtual hug or a virtual handshake and say, hey, good job, you're free to do that via that method, or you can just do it down in the comments and do it there as well. I appreciate them all. And I want to make sure that you know that I do pain over these things quite a bit. I'm a cheapskate, and I grew up broke. So my first RC car, my first hobby grade RC car, if you guys remember the Grasshopper, I think it made a comeback here a couple years ago. But you know, back in the 80s, the Grasshopper, the little buggy, that was my first like retail or hobby grade remote control car, and it took me almost 2 years to save up enough money in order to get that thing, and it was like $400 and some odd dollars. It was this huge expense, but that value that I place in stuff, possibly from my upbringing, is what I bring to this channel as well. I don't want you to buy something that you won't have a good experience. And it pains me when, like, say the Leader 120, one that I still think is a great machine. I stand behind it, but every once in a while I read or I have a comment left about a negative experience with that, and it bothers me, because I don't want anybody to have a negative experience, because you've given your money for something, you should be able to enjoy it. I do understand that there's an acceptable amount of manufacturing flaws in all product, but I just wish it wouldn't happen to us. Anywho, I've gone on much too long. I had hoped to only be in and out like 3 minutes. Again, thank you. If you want to do this, feel free. If you don't, feel free. It's fine. Stay tuned. I've got a bunch of videos obviously coming on this equipment that you see in front of you. I've also got a few other things in the works that I haven't started yet. And more fun to be had. Just like always, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. Sorry I didn't have something more interesting for you to watch, but thanks for watching.